The woman I'd been chasing for 8 years, my goddess, had finally agreed to marry me. But on our wedding day, just as my father, smiling, presented her with the wedding gift, she suddenly spun around, drew a gun, and pressed it to his forehead. Badge number 59347. Do you remember it? I clutched the bouquet in my hand, staring at Chloe in disbelief. Chloe, what are you doing? The casual air on her face vanished, replaced by a steely resolve as she produced a pair of handcuffs from behind her back. Robert Shaw, for the past 5 years, you have repeatedly used charitable donations as a front for smuggling and trafficking narcotics. The evidence is conclusive. I am now placing you under arrest. Her low voice boomed through the microphone, and instantly, the wedding guests erupted in chaos. Is that a real gun? Are they filming a movie? Maybe it's one of those surprises young people plan now, where a bunch of roses pops out when she pulls the trigger. I instinctively glanced at my father, only to see a complex expression in his eyes, his face utterly drained of color. Clinging to a final shred of hope, I reached for her hand. Chloe, stop it. Don't play this kind of joke at our wedding. I don't like it. Chloe sidestepped my touch, her expression cold and distant. I personally investigated the evidence of his crimes. There are no mistakes. How is that possible? My voice cracked, the smile wiped clean from my face. My dad despises drugs. Over the years, he's donated tens of millions to families torn apart by addiction. Her sharp eyes scanned the room as she tapped her earpiece. Primary suspect is in custody. No other suspects identified at this time. Just then, a gunshot silenced all the noise. I instinctively threw myself toward Chloe, and a searing pain shot through my shoulder blade. Hot blood instantly stained the white tuxedo I had spent so long choosing. A guttural roar escaped my father's throat as he charged toward me, but Chloe simply squeezed the trigger again. Bang! Another shot rang out. Not 6 inches from me, my father collapsed onto the red carpet, crushing the boutonniere on his chest. His clouded eyes filled with guilt and regret. Son, I'm sorry. Dad ruined your wedding. I stumbled, trying to reach him, but Chloe blocked my path once more. Do not approach the suspect. It's dangerous. He's not a suspect. I roared, my emotions boiling over. He's my father. He was the man who never argued with anyone, the father who would only get flustered when it came to me. How could he be a criminal? My voice broke into a sob, but Chloe remained unmoved, a cold barrier between us. Her dress was stunning. Her eyes, the ones I had lost myself in, were shining. But I realized now that light held no love, and it held no place for me. There was only her unwavering belief in justice. I couldn't lie to myself anymore. My fists clenched unconsciously. So, this was all a lie, wasn't it? She lowered her gaze. It was for the mission. I'm sorry. The wail of approaching sirens completely drowned out the wedding march. In just a few short minutes, I had gone from a groom to a suspect's son. It wasn't until I was in the back of an ambulance that the pain finally registered. My nails had dug into my palms, drawing blood, but this time, there was no one there to bandage them for me. Hey kid, what's there to be afraid of? Dad's right here. Chicago General Hospital. 2 detectives opened the door to take my statement. Afternoon of May 24th, 2002. Do you remember where your father was? My pupils contracted at the mention of that date. That was the day my mother killed herself. My father didn't get back from his trip until late that night. He had a cut on his temple when he got back. I asked him about it. He said he was just in a rush. 2 hours later, the interview was over, and the detectives turned to leave. I frowned, unable to let it go. Chloe, will she come see me? No, one of them said, glancing back at me. The mission is over. That word, mission, felt like a knife in my heart. That's right, I was just her mission. I dropped my gaze, hiding the bitter self-mockery in my eyes. I understand, I said quietly. The detective sensed my distress and sighed. Look, I probably shouldn't be telling you this, but Chloe said you had a right to know. If it wasn't for this undercover assignment, she'd be married by now. I was stunned for a long moment before his words sank in. So Chloe already had someone she wanted to marry. No wonder she'd always been so distant for the past 3 years, no matter how hard I tried. My throat felt tight, like I'd swallowed a fishbone. I struggled to keep my voice steady. Can I see a picture of him? I just wanted to know what kind of man could capture Chloe's heart. Sorry, Mr. Shaw. As the family member of a suspect, we can't provide that for security reasons. I balled the corner of the hospital blanket in my fist. I fought back the sour taste in my mouth and gave a weak nod. Right? I understand. Only after their footsteps faded down the hall did I cover my eyes with my arm. A choked sob escaped my lips. He was my fiancé's true love, and I was just the son of a criminal. Just her mission. I wasn't even worthy of seeing his face. After I don't know how long, I finally composed myself enough to pull out my phone and open my iMessage conversation with Chloe. Our last exchange was frozen at 8:50 a.m. I had written, "Chloe, I can't wait. I want to marry you right now." She had never replied. Looking back, she probably never had any intention of marrying me. My finger twitched, and I accidentally hit the call button. "What is it?" I hadn't expected her to pick up. I was momentarily flustered. "Chloe, I wanted to ask about my dad." Her voice, even colder through the phone, replied, "It's an active investigation. No comment. And one more thing." She paused, her tone hardening. "Ethan, don't contact me again." My heart sank. Before I could say another word, she hung up. No hesitation at all. I stared at the phone for a long time before my trembling fingers typed out another message. "I know the rules. I won't bother you. I just need to understand what happened." A red exclamation point appeared on the screen. "This person is not accepting messages from you." As if to make sure I got the message, Chloe had blocked me. She left no room for doubt, making it feel as if the last 3 years had been nothing but my own delusion. The wound in my shoulder throbbed, and I couldn't sleep all night. Early the next morning, the detectives returned to my room. "Detectives, I'll cooperate with anything you ask. I just have one question. When can I see my father?" I said carefully. "I don't believe he would do something like this." The detective capped his pen and shook his head. "Mr. Shaw, family visits aren't permitted during an active investigation." For the next few days, detectives came to my room for questioning daily. Chloe never came. She had vanished completely. Just like she and the detectives had said, we had to keep our distance. After I was discharged, I went to the police station. On my way out, I passed a wall of commendations and found myself stopping. The wall was covered in photos behind a glass panel. I scanned them one by one, but I couldn't find hers. I sighed, a little disappointed. Just then, a familiar, cool voice spoke from behind me. "Narcotics detectives don't have their names or photos displayed to protect them from retaliation." I turned. Chloe was standing right behind me. She wore a dark blue detective suit, the brim of her hat pulled low, lending a solemn air to her sharp features. Our eyes met for a second before she coolly looked away. "Once the case goes to the prosecutor, you can have a lawyer visit your father on your behalf." She paused, then added coldly, "In the meantime, if you discover any evidence relevant to the case, you can report it to us." With that, she started to walk away. As she brushed past me, I couldn't stop myself from speaking. "Chloe, is that really all you have to say to me? Besides the case, what about the last 3 years? Do you really have nothing to say about us?" She didn't break her stride, walking toward the exit as if she hadn't heard a word. The glint of her badge caught the corner of my eye, making it sting, but she remained completely unmoved. During the years I pursued her, I watched her walk away countless times. I'd get up at 6 every morning just to jog behind her. I'd go to great lengths to arrange a chance encounter, only for her to brush me off. I asked everyone I could think of about her interests, just to find something to talk about. I tried everything, but she always looked at me with that same indifferent gaze. Until the day I was walking her home and a car sped right for her. I pushed her out of the way and was thrown 10 feet, landing covered in blood with 3 broken ribs. When I woke up from the anesthesia, she was sitting beside me, her lips pressed into a tight line. "Are you an idiot? You see a car coming and you don't move? Why would you push me? Do you have a death wish?" She scolded me, her face stern, her pale hands still stained with my blood. Every bone in my body ached, but I couldn't stop grinning like an idiot, because for the first time, I saw emotion for me in Chloe's indifferent eyes. "Chloe, does this mean you like me a little?" Chloe stared at me in disbelief. "Ethan, is that really all you have to say right now?" Hiss. I winced as I moved, the pain making me gasp, but I stubbornly finished. "Yeah, if it makes you like me, then it was worth it." She looked at me with a complicated expression, and after a long silence, she raised a hand to my cheek. "You win. Let's give this a try." Hearing the words I had longed for, my eyes widened. Forgetting my injuries, I lunged toward her, crying out in pain. She sighed, a hint of resignation in her eyes, and hesitantly kissed my forehead. "Just don't come crying to me later with regrets." I laughed. How could I ever regret this? I, Ethan Shaw, never have regrets. Chloe just said that even if I did regret it, it was fine. She owed me her life, and if I ever regretted our decision, she would do one thing for me, no questions asked. But I never imagined I would. Not until I fell from heaven into hell. The corners of my eyes began to burn. I took a few deep breaths, forcing down the bitter feeling. Detective Davis. Chloe paused, looking back over her shoulder with impatience. Mr. Shaw, is there something else? Her tone was cold and distant. I forced a weak smile. I regret it. I looked her straight in the eye, speaking each word clearly. You said if I ever regretted it, you'd do one thing for me, no questions asked. Her eyes went cold, her brow furrowed. I did. Detective, I interrupted, my eyes red. My father has gout. It's been raining and it must be acting up. Could you please get him a bottle of his pain medication? No, she answered dismissively, brushing my hand away. Everything I did was for the mission. From the very beginning, I never had any feelings for you. Don't delude yourself into thinking I'll do anything else for you. Is that clear? I couldn't hold back the tears any longer. I ducked my head, wiping them away with the back of my hand. Chloe stood beside me, watching in silence. After a moment, she spoke again. Ethan, to be honest, seeing you cry right now doesn't make me feel a thing. My sobs caught in my throat. I looked up into her eyes and suddenly understood. I was just her mission. Now that it was over, she wouldn't even pretend to care. After a few seconds, I managed to choke out, I understand. She was constantly reminding me that our relationship was built on a lie with an expiration date, and now it was over. I bit my lip, staring at her for a long moment before my voice trembled. Detective, even if you had just told me you were investigating a case and rejected me, I would have helped you. I was raised to believe you never turn a blind eye to drug trafficking. Even if I didn't believe it, I would have cooperated completely with the police just to prove my father's innocence. But you chose to use my feelings. What did I do to deserve that? My body trembled uncontrollably. I clenched my fists so hard my knuckles turned white, staring right at her. To be used and then thrown away like garbage. Her expression went blank for a moment, then she frowned and looked away toward the setting sun. 5 years ago, we got a tip that the drug lordess was making a deal under the Clark Street Bridge. But by the time we got there, all we found were 2 bodies, mutilated beyond recognition. They were our undercover officers. Their teeth had all been knocked out, their fingers crushed. Their stomachs were bloated, stuffed with sealed bags of white lime. It was the cartel's way of mocking us. And that's not all. There was another undercover agent. We only confirmed this year that she also died 5 years ago. To this day, we still haven't found her body. My breath caught in my throat. I'm sorry for using your feelings, but even if I could do it all over again, I would. Because I'm a cop. The pouring rain soaked her face, but the detective's shield on her shoulder still gleamed. The cold rain washed away any lingering doubt. Just then, a man in a white shirt ran up to Chloe, holding an umbrella over her. He expertly wiped the rain from her face, then looked at me with curiosity. Chloe, who's this? Chloe grabbed his arm and pulled him away. A suspect's family member. You don't need to get involved. They turned and left so quickly I didn't even get a clear look at the man's face. A thick curtain of rain closed in around me. I watched as Chloe took the man's arm, looking up at him with a smile I had never seen before. A smile she had never once given me. Much later, a female officer brought me back to the station. She gave me a towel and a cup of hot water, telling me to wait out the storm. My mind was a chaotic mess, her voice mixing with the memory of that woman. Just then, a piercing scream cut through my thoughts. I instinctively looked up. A woman, covered in blood, her skeletal arms a canvas of bruises, was screaming. Why did you let him out of rehab? Why? He's not clean, he's still using. Every day he brings men home to rape me, and if I refuse, he beats me. I can take it. Her voice grew shriller, a knife twisting in my gut. But my son, he was only 5. What did he do wrong? That monster stabbed him to death. Over 30 times, detective, do you understand? I can't even figure out how to hold his body to change his clothes. She shoved the officer away and collapsed to her knees, the impact on the concrete floor splitting the skin and drawing blood. The officer pulled the woman into an embrace, and over her shoulder, my eyes met the woman's hollow gaze. Addiction, you can never beat it. I'm begging you, just give him the death penalty. I'll do whatever it takes. Just make him disappear. Her words struck me like thunder. It was more visceral than anything I'd ever seen on the news. My blood ran cold. I looked down in a daze and my eyes fell on the locket around my neck. It was the only gift my mother had ever given me. She had been distant ever since I was born. If she hadn't always been gentle, I might have thought she hated me. But the night before she died, she gave me this locket, which was completely out of character. She had said, "There are so many things in this life that are out of our control. I don't have a choice in how I live anymore. But you still do." My father handled all her arrangements. There was no service, and he forbade me from attending the burial. Could my father really be? Snap. I had been twisting the chain of the locket until it finally broke. The sharp metal stinging my neck felt like an omen. I hesitated for a long time, but I couldn't bring myself to open the locket. I didn't want to face the worst possible truth. Back home, I took a quick shower and lay down, but every time I closed my eyes, I saw that woman's face, filled with a hatred that was identical to the look in my mother's eyes on her last day. I don't know when I finally fell asleep, but I dreamed of when I was a small child. I was crying, throwing a tantrum because I wanted to sleep with my mother. My mother just watched me with cold eyes. "No matter how much you hate me, you have to admit I'm the reason you're alive. Now be good. Don't make me angry again. Go hold your son." I jolted awake, my back drenched in a cold sweat. Why wouldn't my father let me go to her burial? Why did he choose a cemetery 1,000 miles away in Willow Creek? The questions tangled in my mind like a spider web, making it hard to breathe. In a panic, I called Chloe. The busy signal beeped in my ear before I remembered. I quickly dialed the police department's main line. "Hello, Chicago PD? My name is Ethan Shaw. Regarding my father's case, I think I have a new lead." Half an hour later, an unmarked black sedan pulled up silently outside my building. "Mr. Shaw, thank you for your cooperation." I opened the car door. A familiar man nodded to me. It was the man with the umbrella, and next to him sat Chloe. She didn't say a word, her eyes fixed on the road ahead as if she were just the driver. The man smiled at me. "My name is Ryan Davis. I'm her brother. Technically, she should recuse herself, but we're short-staffed, so we're both coming with you." His smile was genuine, his handsome face radiating integrity. In that moment, my heart broke into 1,000 pieces, each one a testament to how unworthy I was. I lowered my head, mumbled an answer, and slid into the back seat. During the drive, the two of them made small talk. "In a few days, we should go take those engagement photos. The suit is that one you liked." "Yeah, whatever you think is best. How many tables should we set up?" He paused, catching my eye in the rearview mirror. "Mr. Shaw, would you like to come?" My fingers tightened into a fist. I gave an awkward laugh. "I don't think so." He nodded, his voice tinged with apology. "That was thoughtless of me. Mr. Shaw, about you and Chloe, I'm sorry. She was against it at first." "We're here." Chloe cut him off, pulling the door open. "Get out." They walked side by side into the dark woods, the pale moonlight barely illuminating their path. An hour later, we finally reached the headstone. I placed the urn before the headstone, borrowed a lighter from Chloe to light the candles I'd bought, and knelt, bowing my head 3 times. "Mom, forgive me. I have to disturb your rest today. But there are some things I have to do, for Dad, and for all the innocent people." Ryan patted my shoulder. "Mr. Shaw, your mother would understand." "Yeah," I mumbled, stepping back. Shovels bit into the earth, flinging reddish-brown dirt into the air. My mother's headstone lay toppled on its side. As the hole in the ground grew, so did the one in my heart, a cold wind whistling through it. Soon, they unearthed an urn identical to the one from the safe. There was nothing else. Ryan looked at me, hesitating. "Mr. Shaw." I looked up at him. "I'll open it." He shook his head. "We can do it. She's your mother, after all." "No," I said, my voice firm. "I need to know if my father is guilty or innocent." He didn't argue, just sighed and stepped aside. The cold ceramic of the urn felt searing hot in my hands. I gritted my teeth and pulled off the lid. Inside, there were no ashes. I swayed, nearly falling into the open grave. Chloe caught my arm. She looked down at the rolls of cash inside the urn, silent. But I understood. I pursed my lips, clinging to one last, desperate hope. "It's just money. That doesn't prove anything, right?" Chloe reached in, took out a roll of bills, and shone her phone's flashlight on one of them. Back then, the dealers in Chicago paid in cash. To keep people from taking the money and running, they marked the bills. "This scratch here, that's their mark." I looked. Beneath her finger was a small S-shaped scratch. I froze, a chill creeping up from my feet to consume me. I clutched the locket at my chest, finally understanding what my mother meant when she said I still had a choice. A moment later, I took off the locket. The clasp was stuck fast. I couldn't get it open. Chloe sighed. "Here, let me." "No." My teeth were chattering, the cold air burning my lungs. I can do it. It was the last thing my mother left me. The clasp finally gave way. A cold metal tag slid into my palm. The pale moonlight illuminated the numbers engraved on it. Badge number 59347. So, 59347, that was my mother's badge number. I couldn't stop the tears anymore. The world spun around me. I felt like I was living in a nightmare. The woman I loved had only gotten close to me for a mission. The father I believed was innocent was actually the infamous drug lord, S. And my mother, who my father claimed was unstable and had killed herself, was a deep cover agent who had been undercover for years. Chloe reached out a hand, but I flinched back, ducking my head to hide my tears. I told you I wouldn't cover for him. Whatever the sentence is, I'll accept it. But if it's the death penalty, please, can I see him one last time? I needed to ask him what was real and what was a lie. My voice broke on the last word. Chloe's voice was grave. You can try, but if the inmate refuses the visit. I paused, then bowed my head deeply. Thank you. No one spoke on the drive back. I kept my eyes closed, pretending to sleep. By the time we got back to Chicago, the sun was rising, but it felt like I had returned to a different world. I dragged myself into my apartment building. Suddenly, a large hand clamped over my mouth. A sharp, cold point pressed into my back. Don't move if you want to live. He forced me up the stairs and into my apartment. He flicked on the lights, tied my hands and feet, then crept to the window to look down at the street. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. His eyes went cold as he pressed the knife to my throat again, nodding for me to answer. Who is it? I managed, gritting my teeth as sweat beaded on my forehead. It's me, Chloe's voice came from the other side. You left something in the car. The man frowned, whispering in my ear, Don't open it. I nodded, trying to sound casual. Just leave it by the door. I don't want to see you. She didn't answer. My heart pounded in my chest. Don't go. I pleaded silently. Don't go. But after a short silence, all I heard was, okay, and the sound of her footsteps fading down the hall. The man let out a low chuckle before a sharp blow to my neck sent me into darkness. I don't know how much time had passed when I woke up. The air was freezing and smelled of formaldehyde. I was in the hospital morgue. The man was wearing a doctor's coat. Good thing I moved fast, he said coldly. Your father was about to sell me out, but it's fine now. He killed himself. What? My eyes widened. No, you're lying. He's in custody. He's safe. There are always ways. Just like I'm about to kill you right under the cops' noses. You! I paused, then began to struggle, screaming, Help! He watched me with amusement, tilting his head. The soundproofing in here is excellent. But, he added with a cruel, vicious smile, you should be happy. With your father dead, you get to live. With that, he shoved a rag in my mouth and dragged me out of the room. The hallways were empty. He didn't stop until we were outside a patient's room. 2 uniformed officers stood guard outside. He walked toward them. Crash! A loud explosion erupted from the floor below. The officers immediately drew their weapons and ran for the stairs, and I was dragged into the room. He pulled a syringe from his pocket, shaking it with a smile. 10 milligrams of pink skull. Consider it my contribution to your funeral. The blue liquid inside glowed ominously. I began to struggle again, but he kicked me away. The taste of blood filled my mouth. I screamed through the gag, my eyes wide with terror. No, no, he paid me no mind, reaching down to pull back the blanket, only to freeze. Underneath, there was only a dummy. Before I could even feel relief, he grabbed me and used me as a shield just as the door burst open. Chloe stood in the doorway, gun raised, her eyes as cold as ice. Drop your weapon, you're surrounded. The needle pressed against my carotid artery, the sharp, cold point making my heart pound. Let me go, or I'll inject him. He won't last a minute. My eyes, filled with a desperate plea, met Chloe's. I didn't want to die. Not like this. Chloe didn't flinch, her aim steady. I'll say it one more time. Drop the weapon. A sharp pain lanced through my chest. Maybe this was my penance for being a drug lord's son, to die by the very poison he sold. If I don't walk out of here, neither does he. The needle broke the skin on my neck, drawing a bead of blood. My face went pale. Just then, Chloe lowered her gun. He's S's son. His life isn't worth much. Why not take me instead? The man laughed. You think I'm an idiot? With all those guns pointed at me? I'm not letting him go. A flicker of anxiety crossed Chloe's face. She raised her hand, giving a signal. The officers behind her exchanged uncertain glances. Captain Davis. That's an order. The officers shot the man a hateful glare before slowly backing out of the room. Chloe closed the door behind them and raised her hands. Satisfied now? The man glanced at me. Chloe's voice was low and steady. I'm the youngest narcotics captain in Chicago. I'm a much more valuable hostage than he is. This is your only chance. Fine, we'll trade, the man finally said, his eyes glinting with malice. But first, you shoot yourself in each leg. You do that, and he's yours. Don't, I yelled. The needle scraped across my neck, and I cried out in pain. Fine, Chloe agreed instantly, her gaze hardening. As long as you don't hurt him, I'll do it. She picked up the gun from the floor and, without blinking, shot herself twice in the legs. The deafening gunshots echoed in the small room, making my head spin. The dark fabric of her suit turned black as it soaked up the blood. She looked at me, her voice hoarse. Is that enough? The man kicked me aside. I slammed into the metal bed frame and couldn't get up. My eyes red with tears. I watched him walk toward Chloe and screamed her name. Chloe! Her gaze met mine over his shoulder, and for a fleeting moment, I saw a faint smile in her eyes, as if she was telling me she was glad I was safe. The man bent down, picked up the gun, pressed it to Chloe's temple, and pulled open the door. The next second, he froze. A bullet whizzed past Chloe's neck, hitting the man squarely in the throat. He made a gurgling sound, using his last ounce of strength to pull the trigger. Click. The hammer fell on an empty chamber. Chloe collapsed backward. I lunged and caught her, her hot blood covering my hands, impossible to wipe away. The shocking red blurred my vision. Chloe! Chloe! I cried her name in a panic. She looked up at me, her strength failing. Don't cry. I'll be. She couldn't finish the sentence. Her long lashes fluttered, and her eyes closed in my arms. Femoral arteries been hit. She's losing a lot of blood, going into shock. She's Rh negative, a rare type. The blood bank is running low. Where's her family? We need her family. The paramedics and officers swarmed around her. I tried to follow but was pushed to the edge of the crowd, unable to even see a glimpse of her. By the time I pushed my way to the front, the light above the operating room door was on. Ryan, who must have been called, was just signing a form. He looked at me with undisguised disgust. Mr. Shaw, what are you doing here? This is a police matter. His words were a dagger to my heart. I dug my nails into my palm. Chloe was hurt saving me, I mumbled. I'm waiting here until she's out. Ryan's reply was sharp. I'm her brother. What are you? I've never heard of a detective needing a suspect's son to worry about her. For the sake of her reputation, please leave. Now. His handsome face was a mask of indifference. I looked around. The other officers wore the same expression. They couldn't help but blame me. Okay, I understand. I braced myself against the wall as I backed away. I'll come back when she's better. For 3 days, I didn't leave the hospital. The blood on my clothes had dried to a dark brown. Finally, Chloe was moved from the ICU to a regular room. With Chloe's permission, 2 officers escorted me into her room. She looked at me, her face expressionless. You wanted to see me? Chloe. My heart ached seeing her bandaged legs. Does it hurt? I asked softly. If that's all you came to say, Chloe said, turning her head away. You can leave. I couldn't hold back any longer. Chloe, I came to ask you, what were you trying to say to me that day, before you passed out? The question had been haunting me for 3 days. Her actions didn't match the heartless facade she put on. Otherwise, why would she have tried to comfort me in a moment like that? Chloe frowned slightly. What are you talking about? She acted as if she didn't remember. I took a deep breath and repeated her words. You said, don't cry. I'll be. She paused. After a moment of silence, she said dismissively, annoyed. What? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. No, you're lying again. You were trying to keep me from worrying. You still care about me. Otherwise, why would you have taken those bullets? Her fingers fidgeted for a moment, a complex emotion flickering in her eyes before her indifferent mask was back in place. I think you've misunderstood something. I didn't do it for you. As a police officer, I have a duty to protect any citizen whose life is in danger. Even if it had been someone else, I would have done the same thing. The flicker of hope in my heart was extinguished by her words, plunging me back into darkness. The window reflected my pale, gaunt face. I looked down at her, stubbornly refusing to believe it. Chloe, I'm asking you one last time. Did you ever, for even a moment, have feelings for me? She frowned, looking at me with irritation, but before she could speak, one of her colleagues burst into the room. Captain Davis. Robert Shaw saw the surveillance playback. He confessed to everything. I stared at Chloe in disbelief. And then I understood everything. It was all a ploy. She had used my life to pressure my father. Her supposed comfort was nothing more than a warning that only she could protect me, only her. Our entire conversation had been a farce. But I didn't even have the right to be angry with her. The feeling of being used again was like a needle and thread, stitching its way through my very bones. Chloe clasped her hands together, her knuckles white. She stared at me for a long moment before speaking in a low voice. "Do you still need an answer?" "No, just give me back the ring." Her eyelashes fluttered. Her hand twitched, then fell still. "I lost it," she said flatly. "Sorry." 2 weeks later, Ryan told me my father's trial date had been set. I rushed to the courthouse to request permission to attend. "Sir, you dropped this." A young girl with a ponytail called out to me, her eyes bright and full of life. She bent down to hand me what I dropped. It was my father's ID photo. "Thank you." I thanked her sincerely and turned to hand the photo to an officer, but I ran into Ryan. He looked at the girl with a complicated expression, sighed, and walked over to her. He said something I couldn't hear, and the girl burst into tears. I rushed over and pulled her into a hug, glaring at Ryan. "She's just a kid. Even if her family are criminals, you can't just—" Ryan cut me off. "Ethan, her brother was a narcotics detective." My breath caught in my throat. I froze. Her parents were both narcotics detectives. They were killed in the line of duty 11 years ago, leaving her at 5 and her 12-year-old brother. And just now, her 23-year-old brother was brutally murdered in a retaliation hit by a cartel. Now, she's the only one left. You tell me, how was I supposed to break that to her gently? The crying girl in my arms felt like a burning coal, searing my flesh. When I was 16, I was on a private island, watching the sun rise over the ocean, buying whatever I wanted with a swipe of a card. And she was a death certificate. Every word written in the blood and tears of her family. I thought I understood the dangers of drugs. Now I realized how naive I'd been. The reality was far more brutal than anything on the news. In a daze, I thought of my mother. A few of the older officers who knew my mother told me she came from a family of cops, that she had even reactivated her grandfather's badge number. She had cracked a dozen major drug cases. The case against Robert Shaw was supposed to be her last undercover assignment. She said she was going to transfer to a desk job and marry her childhood sweetheart. But instead, she was held captive, forced to give birth to me, and had to watch her fellow officers be murdered, unable to call for help. My heart sank into darkness. I dazedly released the girl and bowed deeply to her. "I'm so sorry." She looked at me, her eyes red and empty. The words were too small, too insignificant to bridge the chasm between life and death. There was only one way. I clutched the locket in my hand and walked out of the station. Back home, I began to pack in silence, but my mind was a cacophony of memories. Chloe used to say, "Love isn't the most important thing in life." Every time she said it, I would get upset and tell her, "But for me, loving you is the most important thing." And now, I looked out at the drizzling rain and gave a bitter smile. The woman's screams, the girl's empty eyes, the murdered agents, my mother who had to die to be free. With so many lives weighing on my conscience, my love for her felt trivial. Much later, I realized my phone had died. When I plugged it in, I saw over a dozen missed calls from the police department. Knock, knock. There was a knock at the door. "Ethan," Chloe's anxious voice called from the hallway. I sat on the cold floor, staring numbly at the door, saying nothing. Chloe's voice grew more urgent. "Open the door. Ethan, don't do anything stupid. This whole thing." I cut her off, my voice hoarse. "Detective Davis, you were right. We shouldn't contact each other anymore." The frantic breathing outside my door stopped, then slowly evened out. A few minutes later, I heard her cold voice again. "I just came to inform you that Robert Shaw's case involves national security. You won't be able to attend the trial." My heart stopped. After a long moment, I managed to force the words out. "Thanks for letting me know. My father was sentenced to death. The execution was in 1 week. I applied for a final visit, but my request was denied. The reason given was that my father had refused to see me. How was that possible?" Without a second thought, I ran for the police station, but a passing delivery scooter knocked me down, pain and blood spreading across my body. The driver was terrified and tried to get me to a hospital. "No," I said, limping to my feet. "I'm fine. If I was any later, I would miss my last chance to see my father." I dragged my injured leg into the station and grabbed the first person I saw. "I'm Robert Shaw's son. He's being executed. Please, let me see him one last time." I hadn't realized it was Chloe. Ethan, what happened to you? I gritted my teeth against the pain. I'm fine. I came to see my father one last time. Chloe, detective, please, you have to help me. Just to see him. I don't even have to say anything. I'm begging you. Please help me. No. Chloe grabbed my arm. You need to go to the hospital and get that leg looked at. My eyes burning, I pulled away from her and fell to my knees. Chloe, please. I just want to see my father one last time. I knew he was a monster, but I couldn't bring myself to abandon him. No. Her answer was still the same. She gave me one last look, then turned and walked away. A security guard was called to escort me out of the building. The pouring rain soaked me to the bone, washing the blood from my leg, but Chloe never came back. 2 weeks later, Chloe came to my door herself, holding an urn and a letter. I didn't say a word. I just took them from her, closed the door in her face, and opened the letter with trembling hands. The letter was short. I'm sorry, son. I failed you and your mother. Live a good life. It was dated June 26th, my birthday. His last birthday gift to me. I clutched the letter as a cold wind seemed to blow right through me, stripping away all warmth, carving me out from the inside until the pain was unbearable. Dad, Mom. I stumbled and fell, crying out in agony. Through my blurred, tear-filled eyes, all I could see were the 2 cold urns. For the rest of my life, I was destined to live in the storm. I returned my mother's urn to the police department and, with my father's, set out for Willow Creek. On my way out of the city, I got stuck in traffic. I stared blankly out the window and my eyes met Chloe's. She was in a limousine, decorated for a wedding. She wore a simple white dress with a corsage pinned to her chest. She looked radiant. I felt nothing. I turned away. My phone vibrated. A message from a familiar number. Ethan, where are you going? I slowly typed my reply. Somewhere you'll never find me. When Chloe saw Ethan's message, her heart skipped a beat. She instinctively went to call him. Chloe, who are you calling? Ryan's voice was sharp, his eyes filled with suspicion. No one, Chloe answered distractedly, putting her phone away. Ryan gave her a long, meaningful look. Chloe, we both know that drug dealers do it for the money. Even if their families don't know what's going on, they still benefit from it. Not to mention, he has bad blood. You can't wash that clean. He didn't say Ethan's name, but every word was aimed at him. Chloe's fists clenched, her knuckles turning white. The limousine pulled up to the hotel. She got out and walked away without a word. The cheerful wedding march echoed through the hall. Chloe stood backstage, her phone screen lighting up and going dark again and again. A nagging anxiety gnawed at her. After a moment's hesitation, she called Ethan's number, only to be met with a cold, automated voice. The number you have dialed is no longer in service. Please check the number and try again. Ethan had blocked her number. Her fingers froze. She immediately opened the internal police database and typed in Ethan's name. But just as she was about to hit enter, the officiant's voice came over the speakers. And now, let's welcome the most important person in the groom's life to the stage. She froze for a second, then put her phone away, took a deep breath, and walked into the spotlight. Ryan was waiting for her there. 3 years later, the Allure nightclub, Willow Creek. Amid the dazzling lights and intoxicating glamour, Chloe leaned back on a leather sofa. The Patek Philippe on her wrist reflected the neon lights. She squinted, her voice laced with boredom. If you don't want my business, I can always take it elsewhere. No, no, Miss Davis, a henchman with bleached blonde hair said, quickly pouring her a drink. My boss is just tied up. 5 minutes, tops. She'll be right here. Just as he finished speaking, the heavy door to the private room swung open. Chloe glanced up casually, and her pupils contracted. She never imagined she would see Ethan like this. He was barely clothed, his eyes covered by a black blindfold, crawling on his hands and knees, led by a leash held by a woman I recognized as a local dealer. Miss Davis, so sorry to keep you waiting. I brought you a little something to make it up to you. Ethan, a fawning smile on his face, crawled to Chloe's feet. A pleasure, Miss Davis. Chloe snapped back to reality. She coolly averted her gaze and tapped her empty glass on the table. You know how to make an entrance, but this won't be enough to satisfy me. Boss Miller said you had some pink skull. That's the only reason I'm here. If you're going to give me the runaround like you did on the phone, I'm leaving. Pink skull? The woman, the madam, repeated, a strange look on her face. Her almond eyes darted suspiciously between Chloe and Ethan. Boss Miller told you I had that? The next second, Ethan collapsed against Chloe's legs, his face pale and drawn, his eyes unfocused and dull. His cold hand rested on her waist as he pleaded, his voice thick. Mississippi. He looked exactly like an addict going through withdrawal. Chloe's eye twitched. In just 3 years, Ethan had fallen this far. Not only working as an escort for a drug dealer, but becoming an addict himself. But he was supposed to be... She forced down her emotions, touching Ethan's cheek with an impatient hand. Yes, Miller told me. If my father hadn't forbidden me from leaving the country, I wouldn't have bothered coming all the way out here to find you. She raised an eyebrow at the madam. So, do you have it or not? Answer me. The madam glanced at her henchman, who gave a slight nod. She rubbed her hands together. Yes, of course. Money is no object. Chloe gestured with her chin toward a suitcase by the door. That's full of cash. If it's not enough, there's more in my car. Her reckless, spoiled rich girl act seemed to put the madam at ease. She smirked. No rush on the money. Let's sample the goods first. The madam produced a small, candy-like ball and held it out to Chloe. Every undercover narcotics agent faces this particular challenge, having to take drugs. Or rather, how to fake it so convincingly that the dealer believes you have. Chloe took it without batting an eye. The madam continued. This is a new and improved version. One of these, and even Arnold Schwarzenegger would be on his knees. Miss Davis, give it a try. See how it compares to what you're used to. Chloe's hand paused in midair. Then, her cold eyes curved into a smile. All right, her lips parted. She brought the small ball to her mouth, her eyelashes lowering. In that instant, the faces of all the agents who had come before her flashed through her mind. She closed her eyes, and when she opened them again, her gaze was resolute. Just then, a haggard face loomed in front of hers. Nose to nose, forehead to forehead. Ethan leaned in and took the ball from her lips with his own, his long fingers wrapping around the back of her neck. The moment his cold lips brushed against hers, Chloe's heart skipped a beat. His tongue traced the line of her lips. Seeing this, the madam slowly sat back down. Soon, Ethan's skin began to flush. He writhed against Chloe, his already minimal clothing slipping even further. A small red mole on his lower back caught Chloe's eye. Chloe's expression hardened. She pulled Ethan into a tight embrace, the veins in her neck standing out. Why had he become this? Did he even remember who she was? Who he was? But besides this passionless embrace, there was nothing she could say. A few minutes later, Ethan went limp on the sofa, his eyes vacant. The frown on Chloe's face didn't ease. The madam walked over and slapped Ethan across the face. You worthless piece of trash. You think you're worthy of tasting something so expensive? Her long, sharp nails left a bleeding scratch on his cheek. Chloe's fingers interlaced, her thumb rubbing over her knuckles. She watched them in silence. The madam grabbed a fistful of Ethan's hair, ready to strike again, when Chloe finally spoke. Hey, I've sampled the goods. How much longer are you going to waste my time? The madam paused, her expression souring. Miss Davis, that little test didn't count. Now try some of the powder. Chloe was about to refuse, but a glimpse of Ethan out of the corner of her eye made her change her mind. Fine, I'll give you one last chance. Bring it here. She took the powder and, in front of the madam, took a deep snort, then wiped her nose with the back of her hand as if enjoying the rush. The madam finally seemed satisfied. Miss Davis, you're a woman who knows what she wants, but those sugar balls are rare. That was my last one. 3 days from now at the marina. Deal. They quickly finalized the details and made some polite small talk. Chloe couldn't stop herself from asking about Ethan. The madam glanced at him with contempt. Him? He's just a pretty boy. A dog on a leash. Chloe's jaw tightened. She swallowed, her face a blank mask. A dog. The madam took a hit of powder from her henchman, her eyes glazing over. Yeah, the way he was crawling all over you just now, that was him being restrained. Usually, he's much worse. As she spoke, she gestured to her henchman, who pulled out his phone, played a video, and held it in front of Chloe. In the video, Ethan stood on a small stage wearing a thin, white shirt. All right, pretty boy, let's try something a little more exciting tonight. He hesitated for only a second before stripping off his shirt and pants and climbing onto a table. Hot wax dripped onto his bare back. A low gasp escaped his throat as he arched into it, trembling. The tension in Chloe's mind stretched to a breaking point. When she spoke, her voice was hoarse. This video, the henchman grinned knowingly. I've got it all on video. My footage is the clearest. Look, you can even see the shape of his muscles outlined by the wax. Miss Davis, if you like this, I've got even better stuff. I'll send you a compilation later on the house. Chloe looked away, giving a non-committal grunt, a storm of emotions churning inside her. She couldn't believe that this man was the same Ethan she had known, the one who was so gentle on the outside but had a core of steel. But the mole on his back was like a needle, effortlessly popping the bubble of her denial. That was Ethan. Her heart sank. She couldn't understand what could have happened to change a person so completely. Hello? What? Okay, fine. Phone rang. The madam's expression changed. She stood up and made a hand signal. Miss Davis, let's call it a night. I'll see you in 3 days. Chloe looked away from the phone. Fine. Without another glance at Ethan in the corner, she strode out of the room. Back in her car, Chloe pulled out a tissue and carefully wiped the powder from her palm, but she couldn't wipe away the flood of memories of Ethan. The way he blushed the first time they held hands, the way his eyelashes trembled when they kissed, the tears in his eyes when he proposed, and the time he'd had too much to drink and held her tight. Chloe! Ethan's cheeks were flushed as he looked at her, his eyes wide. Did you know I have a mole on my back? A mole? Yeah. He lifted the hem of his shirt slightly. I got it the day I met you. I wanted something to remember it by, but nothing too obvious. My dad would have killed me. Then you shouldn't have gotten it. Ethan shook his head in exasperation. You have no romance in your soul. Don't you know the poem? His innocent words were a bullet through her heart. To know my love is to know my sorrow. She couldn't control her emotions any longer. She slammed her fist against the steering wheel, her eyes burning. When she looked up again, she froze. Ethan was arguing with a woman on the street corner. Chloe took a deep breath. He had brought this on himself. This was the life he had chosen. But the next second, she was out of the car, pulling Ethan behind her. For a second, she thought she saw a flash of relief on his face, but it might have just been a trick of the light. Get lost. Chloe's eyes were like ice. The woman turned and fled without a backward glance. She grabbed Ethan's wrist and half dragged, half pulled him into her car, slamming the door and cutting off the sounds of the street. She turned to look at him. His lips and cheeks were flushed, and there was a smear of blood on his chin. 1,000 questions flooded her mind, and for a moment, she didn't know where to begin. But Ethan spoke first, a lazy smile on his face. Miss Davis, we meet again. Thanks for that. She was trying to get a freebie. Can't have that. His tone was flippant and crude. Chloe's brow furrowed. You, He gave her a strange look. Oh, right. You rich kids don't like that kind of talk. I get it. I used to be the same, but my father ratted out too many people when he got caught. Now I'm stuck rotting in the gutter. His eyes were empty. No light, no love. He spoke as if he were talking to a stranger. No. Chloe frowned, shaking her head. It's fine, Ethan said, a playful smile on his face as he leaned closer. Miss Davis, whatever you like, I can be. Chloe asked, confused. What? Hey, don't play dumb. You've been staring at me all night. I must look a lot like your ex. Huh. His warm breath ghosted across her neck, and her fingers curled into a fist. You like this face that much? Buy me a bag of powder, and I'm all yours. Out of her sight, the wound in his palm, clenched into a fist, split open again. Thick, red blood dripped from his hand like tears. It's not that you look like him, Chloe said, turning her head slightly. She watched him out of the corner of her eye. It's that your name, and even the mole on your back, are exactly the same. Ethan's head snapped up. Their eyes met. He swallowed hard. In that moment, he remembered a long time ago, flirting with Chloe, emboldened by alcohol. To know my love is to know my sorrow. But with you, even the sorrow is sweet. He had kissed her cheek. Good night, Chloe. A dull ache spread through his chest, and the color drained from his face. Ethan, Chloe's voice was urgent. Are you in pain? I'm taking you to the hospital. He snapped out of it, shaking his head with a desolate smile. Miss Davis, I really don't want to go back to rehab. You've been to rehab? Chloe's eyes widened. The words slipped out before she could stop them. Ethan nodded, a slight smile on his face, and held up 3 fingers. 3 times. The first time I got my head split open. Forgot a lot of things after that. A jolt went through Chloe. She stared at him in disbelief, but no matter how she studied his face, she couldn't find any sign that he was lying. But I guess if you can forget something, it probably wasn't that important, right? Ethan's voice was light, but Chloe's heart was heavy as lead. She hesitated, then decided to press him. You really don't remember me? Ethan forced a sycophantic smile. Miss Davis, with a face and a bank account like yours, even a cracked skull couldn't make me forget you. Chloe's chest rose and fell rapidly. She knew she wasn't going to get a straight answer out of him. She rubbed her temples. How long have you been with this madam? 10 days, Ethan said casually. 10 days ago, I heard she was still in Miami with the big boss, getting the shipment ready. She pressed on. So the sugar balls are from Miami? I've only ever heard of Pink Skull. I don't know, but I hear the sugar balls are just as strong as Pink Skull. Ethan rubbed his nose. The phone in his pocket began to ring. He answered it. Where are you? Get to 701, now. It was the madam. He lowered his eyes and mumbled a reply before hanging up and reaching for the door handle. Miss Davis, since you're not in the mood today, I'll be going. 59347. The sudden string of numbers from Chloe's lips made Ethan freeze, halfway out of his seat. After a brief pause, he turned back, a perfectly calibrated look of confusion on his face. 59,347? Miss Davis, is that your license plate number? Then, a brilliant smile spread across his face. I'll remember that. No. Chloe's expression shifted, but she didn't elaborate. Instead, she got out and opened the car door for him. She reached out and straightened his collar. Go on. For a moment, Ethan's face was blank. He stood, stunned, and watched her get back in the car and drive away. He didn't move until the taillights of her Maybach had disappeared around the corner. Then he raised a hand to the back of his neck. A bug, the size of a fingernail, was pinched between his fingers. He gave a self-deprecating smirk and flicked it into a nearby trash can. After all these years, Chloe hadn't changed a bit. All her sweet nothings were just another way to use him. Pity. Chloe returned to her temporary safe house. She walked quickly into the study, opened her laptop, entered a long password, cleared her throat, and began her report. 15 minutes later, the report was finished. Her phone screen lit up. A message from the intelligence division, the one handling her informant. Source of the sugar balls confirmed. Is the madam's supplier. Codename K. Her suspicion was confirmed. Her eyes darkened. Robert Shaw had mentioned K after his arrest, but before the police could move in, K had vanished. For 3 years, there had been no sign of him. Willow Creek. What was so special about this place? Why had Robert Shaw hidden his money here? And why, after 3 years in hiding, had Kay chosen to resurface here? 1,000 thoughts raced through her mind, none of them sticking. Chloe wearily rubbed her temples. The clock on her computer read 11 p.m. She sighed. Keep a close watch. Don't spook him. Don't worry. Ghost is one of our best. Hasn't made a single mistake in the 3 years they've been on this assignment. 3 years ago, a thought suddenly struck Chloe. She lost her composure for a moment. Is Ghost a man or a woman? To prevent leaks, the identities of informants were kept on a strict need-to-know basis. No one, not even their direct handler, could investigate them without explicit authorization from a superior. This was why so many informants died with the reputation of being criminals. The agent from intelligence hesitated. Chloe had been sent down from Chicago, which made her the equivalent of a federal marshal. Finally, he made a decision. A woman, Captain. Did you run into some trouble on your operation today? Chloe stood frozen for a moment before answering, her voice hoarse. No, just confirming. Then she quickly hung up. The blue light of the screen reflected in her eyes, cold and deep as the ocean. She sat, unmoving, for a long time before finally stirring. She typed a name, letter by letter, into the search bar of the police database. Ethan Shaw. A few seconds later, Ethan's entire history for the past 3 years filled her screen. Chloe slowly scrolled down the page, pausing when she saw the name of a rehab facility. Ethan hadn't been lying. He really had been to rehab 3 times. Ethan Shaw, admitted to Willow Creek Rehabilitation Center, 2013. Altercation with inmate Mark Johnson resulted in severe head trauma. The medical report didn't mention amnesia, but based on his behavior today, it was clear he had forgotten her completely. But Chloe couldn't understand how someone could remember everything except for a single person. A moment later, a web search gave her the answer. Psychogenic amnesia. Caused by severe psychological trauma, the brain selectively erases memories of a specific person to protect the individual from overwhelming emotional pain that could lead to self-harm. Chloe froze. Had she hurt him so badly that the only way he could survive was to forget she ever existed? Half an hour earlier, Ethan had walked back into the private room. The madam stared at him, her expression dark. She said only one word, strip. He froze, his eyes darting to the other people in the room. The madam said nothing, just stroked the pistol in her lap. Ethan realized she suspected him. A fawning smile spread across his face. He quickly stripped off his clothes and tossed them to a henchman for inspection, then spread his arms and turned in a slow circle. But the madam's cold gaze didn't waver. The underwear too. It was as if she intended to strip away and crush his last shred of dignity. An involuntary tremor ran through Ethan's body. But hadn't he waited 3 years for this chance? If his cover was blown, neither he nor Chloe would get out of this alive. He was already tainted. For the sake of all those who had died, it was worth it. 1,000 thoughts raced through his mind. He swallowed, and his hands went to the waistband of his underwear. The soft fabric pooled at his ankles, leaving him completely naked before them. On his lean frame, there was nothing but the mole on his back. The madam finally smiled. She walked up to him and tilted his chin up with a finger. "Why didn't you leave with that rich girl?" "Because you didn't say I could," Ethan said obediently. "I'm yours. I wouldn't go with anyone else without your permission." "Is that so?" The madam snorted. "I still think there's something off about you too." Ethan's heart sank. A cold sweat broke out on his back. "I noticed it too." It was the only thing he could say. "Maybe I look like her first love?" "Madam, didn't you say I had that kind of face?" "A pity I'm with you now." He gave her a sidelong glance, his smile bright. "If you ever get tired of me, I'll go find her. At least she'll pay." He delivered the vulgar words with such shamelessness that the madam's suspicion began to fade. Could an undercover agent really act so debased? "All right, I know you'll do anything for a fix." The madam patted his cheek condescendingly and gestured with her eyes. "There, take care of them, and you can have as much as you want." "That's right. We'll give you whatever you want, as long as you're a good boy." A woman in a designer dress pointed to a whip on the table. "Come on, bark for us." "Is that all you've got? We should at least give him a good waxing." "Ha ha ha, one step at a time." "Hey, how about we make him put on a show for us?" They openly discussed how to humiliate him, their lewd gazes raking over his body. It was like they were scraping away his dignity with an iron comb, taking skin and bone with it. But his expression remained placid, almost obedient. Like a dog that didn't understand human speech, he did whatever they told him. As the night wore on, he was covered in sticky alcohol. Finally, Ethan couldn't hold it in any longer and threw up. He groggily looked up at the writhing bodies around him. Felt like hell on earth. The madam squatted in front of him, roughly wiping his face with a napkin. Suddenly, she asked, "Who is Chloe Davis to you?" The alcohol haze vanished instantly. His fingers dug into the floorboards. He looked up at the madam with a dazed smile. "I know her. Of course I do. Tell me what your relationship is," the madam hissed, her eyes slithering over his face like a snake. He smiled, resting his cheek in her palm. "You're Chloe. Madam, you have a beautiful name. I'll remember it." He looked like he had drunk himself into a stupor. "Ha ha ha." The madam gave a signal, and a bodyguard hauled him to his feet. "I can't tell you my real name, but it sounds a lot richer than Chloe." Ethan didn't speak, just smiled, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. The next morning, the harsh sunlight banished the darkness. His eyelashes fluttered. He had finally escaped the long night of torture. Barefoot, Ethan shuffled painfully into the bathroom. The mirror reflected his battered image, a mess of purple and blue bruises. There was hardly an inch of unmarred skin. He stumbled to the toilet and retched. Yellow bile and red blood. He heaved until his body was completely spent. The cold tile floor chilled him to the bone. He thought numbly, it would be better to just die. The next second, he snapped out of it. No, he didn't have the right to die like this. What about all the people who had died because of his father? How could they rest in peace? The emptiness in his eyes was replaced by a steely resolve. Ethan turned on the shower and stepped under the scalding water, scrubbing his skin until it was raw. He wrapped a towel around his waist, picked up his phone, and sent a message to a secure number. The moment he put his phone down, the door was kicked open. The blonde henchman slammed him down onto the bed. "Damn it, after watching you all night, I thought I had you all wrong. But you really are a cop's dog after all. What are you talking about?" Ethan froze, then began to struggle, looking up at the madam. "How could I be working for the cops?" The madam gave a humorless smile and said one word. "Password. 90626. He answered obediently. "And you say you're not working with the cops?" The blonde man slapped him across the face, his eyes cold. "Your password is the date of International Drug Awareness Day." Ethan's cheek swelled instantly. The corner of his eye was red as he stammered out an explanation. "June 26th is my birthday. I don't know anything about some Drug Awareness Day." The madam said nothing, her fingers flying across the phone's keyboard, opening and closing various social media apps. Finally, she pointed to the message Ethan had just sent. "What does this message mean?" The screen showed a single sentence. "Poker tonight?" Ethan bit his lip and explained, his voice pleading. It means poker. Madam, you gave me some money last night. I just wanted to go out and have some fun. Is that not allowed? The madam sneered and said to the blond man, give him a shot of sodium amytal. Let's see if he can still lie then. Ethan had seen what sodium amytal did to people. It turned them into babbling idiots who would give up their own bank passwords. His muscles seized, but he was powerless to resist. He watched as the needle slid into his vein, a cold liquid spreading through his arm. What does the message mean? Ethan's mind was foggy. He tried to focus, but he couldn't. He dug his fingers into the wound in his palm. Poker? Really? With the rich girl from last night? Tell me the truth. What's your relationship with her? Ethan's eyes glazed over as he spoke, his words slow and slurred. Wanna be her boy toy. Get money for powder. Tisk. The madam frowned and gestured to her henchman. The dose isn't strong enough. Give him more. The henchman quickly prepared another syringe and plunged it into Ethan's arm. A buzzing filled his head. He couldn't think. Cold sweat poured down his face, and his eyes rolled back in his head. As his body convulsed, he bit down hard on his tongue. The sharp pain brought a moment of clarity. Tell me, what is your relationship with Chloe Davis? Blood trickled from the corner of Ethan's mouth as he gave a cynical laugh. Being with a rich, beautiful woman would be a lot better than being with you. He looked like a man completely infatuated. But the madam didn't believe a word of it. She drew a dagger from her belt and pressed it to his throat. What is your relationship with Chloe Davis? She repeated the question, searching his face for any sign of deception, but he just laughed crazily and tried to embrace her. The sharp point of the dagger pierced his collarbone. He let out a low groan and collapsed to the floor. His head lolled to the side, as if all the strength had been drained from his body. The madam didn't see the flicker of relief in his eyes. She decided to bluff. I already know that Chloe is a cop, and you must be her informant. Admit it if you want to live. Ethan stared at the floor, mumbling as if in a dream. I was wrong, madam. He looked up, his eyes meeting hers. I shouldn't have gone behind your back. If she's a cop, you should kill her. I'll hand you the knife. His expression was calm, almost cruel. The henchman glanced nervously at Ethan. Madam, should I give him more? If he dies, it could be a problem. The madam stared at Ethan, gritting her teeth. After a moment, she nodded. Do it. If he dies, we'll chop him up in the kitchen and feed him to the strays. The henchman steeled himself and raised the needle, but a pale hand shot out and grabbed his wrist. Stop! He looked back, startled. It was a stranger, a woman wearing gold-rimmed glasses who looked like a well-educated, wealthy young woman. Kay! The madam's arrogant demeanor vanished. She quickly wiped her hands. I wasn't expecting you so soon. Ethan's heart began to pound. He had never imagined that the infamous drug lord Kay was a woman. Kay gave the madam a cold look and chided her, her voice soft but firm. Making such a scene in broad daylight? TSK, this boy is trouble. I think he and the woman from yesterday were sent by the cops, the madam stammered. Kay knelt in front of Ethan, her sharp gaze piercing through the lenses of her glasses and into his very soul. It was like an X-ray, laying all his secrets bare. She suddenly gave a neurotic little laugh, brushing his messy hair from his face. No one can withstand that much sodium amytal. You're useless. Get out. The madam's face twitched, but after a moment, she sullenly led her henchman out of the room. Only Kay and Ethan remained in the room. Ethan lay collapsed on the floor, the world spinning around him. Kay watched him for a moment, then ordered her bodyguard to carry him to the bed. She made a call, telling her private doctor to come immediately with an antidote. Robert Shaw was such an idiot, hiding you from me all these years. Her tone was playful as she toyed with his earlobe. He and my father even talked about arranging a marriage for us. If I had met you sooner, you wouldn't have had to suffer so much. Ethan's body twitched intermittently. He felt as if every nerve was snapping, one by one. He couldn't move. Kay didn't seem to care whether he responded, occasionally pinching his arm. Ethan felt like her plaything. You're mine now. She hurt you. I'll make sure you get your justice. But last night, I saw you get into a woman's car. Do you know her? He stiffened. The movement pulled at the wound in his collarbone, and the sharp pain cleared his head. He gritted his teeth against the pain, his expression dazed. I know her. I need money. She has money. Kay let out a low laugh, a sound that was both sweet and venomous. She gently touched the hilt of the dagger still embedded in his collarbone. It's all right. I don't care. When this is all over, I'll take you to Miami. Your father left you a final gift. A gift? Ethan's brow twitched. He was about to press for more information when a loud argument from downstairs interrupted him. It was Chloe's voice. "Stop it!" Chloe's voice, tight with anger, echoed through the nearly empty club. Ryan sneered. "What's the matter? The man who was all over you yesterday is too scared to face me today." The madam said it was all a misunderstanding, but her eyes were cold. Ryan gave her a cold look and tossed a black credit card onto the table. He sneered. "I know how this works. It's all about the money. If he can sell himself to my sister, he can sell himself to me, right? Name your price. I'll pay it." The madam's expression changed. She waved her hand dismissively. "Handsome, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not a pimp. What's all the noise about?" The wooden stairs creaked as Kay descended, an interested look on her face. Behind her, Ethan was slung limply over a bodyguard's shoulder, blood dripping from the wound in his collarbone. The first thing Chloe saw was Ethan's pale face and the dagger still embedded in his collarbone. Her chest rose and fell in shallow, rapid breaths. She forced herself to look away, turning to Ryan with a blank expression. "I told you he was the one who came on to me. I didn't touch him. Think about it. How could I possibly be interested in someone like that?" Her cold words fell on Ethan's ears like stones. Not heavy, but enough to be the final straw. He silently looked up at the wedding ring on Ryan's finger and whispered 2 words. "It hurts." The raw vulnerability in his voice made Chloe freeze. Kay smiled, turning to kiss the back of his hand. She spoke, her voice tinged with apology. "Miss, my fiancé has a strange sense of humor. There was a misunderstanding yesterday. I apologize. Whatever compensation you require, just tell the madam. I'll double it." With that, she turned and, without another glance at anyone, strode out of the club with Ethan in tow. Chloe stared straight ahead, unmoving. Only she knew she was watching their reflection in the window. She was desperate to see a plea for help in his eyes. Even a flicker would have been enough for her to convince herself that he was being forced, that he wasn't a part of this world. But until he was bundled into a car and driven away, that moment never came. He wasn't being forced. He had become the very thing she despised. So, the woman from yesterday was already married. Kay smiled. So irresponsible. She doesn't even wear a ring. The tip of Ethan's ear twitched, but he said nothing, letting his consciousness fade into darkness. Ryan dragged Chloe out of the nightclub. Her expression was unchanged, as if nothing had happened. Only the slight rubbing of her thumb against her fingers betrayed her inner turmoil. "You rushed all the way out here first thing in the morning, and it was for him." The disappointment in Ryan's eyes was palpable. "Chloe, do you have any idea what you're doing?" What was she doing? Chloe started the engine in silence. This morning, she had sent the sugar ball back to the lab for analysis. Only then had she remembered that it was one of the most expensive and rarest drugs on the market. She didn't know how Ethan had gotten his hands on it, but a seed of worry had been planted in her mind. If he had stolen it, the dealers wouldn't let him live. And so, she had come here. Seeing her silence, Ryan sneered. "I know you've always thought Ethan was a good person, not like his father. But the truth is, he has his father's dirty blood in his veins. The moment things get tough, he takes the easy way out. I suspected it from the beginning. He only turned in his father to save his own skin." Ryan's words grew sharper. The car screeched to a halt. Chloe, radiating a cold fury, turned to look at him. "Are you finished?" "No," Ryan shot back. "Do you think this is just a difference of opinion?" "No. The line between you and him is the law. It's the lives of every officer who has died fighting this war. Every second you waste feeling sorry for him is an insult to their memory." Ryan's eyes were bloodshot. He pointed to where her badge would be. "Chloe, don't forget you're a narcotics detective. Anyone else can feel sorry for an addict, but you can't." Chloe was silent for a long time. Finally, under his intense gaze, she spoke, her voice hoarse. "I know." Her left hand, hidden from his view, was clenched so tightly that her nails dug into her palm. "I'm keeping Ethan alive because he's useful, just like 3 years ago. As long as you know." Ryan finally calmed down. He leaned back in his seat, fiddling with the wedding ring on his finger. "I can't help you with this operation. I'm heading back to Chicago tomorrow. You be careful." "Okay." The car started moving again. The scenery outside flew backward, but time could only move forward. If only, a thought began to form in Chloe's mind, but the vibration of her phone cut it short. It was an urgent message from the Intel division. "Kay has arrived in Willow Creek. Copy." She couldn't grasp the fleeting thought, and for the rest of her life, she would never have the chance to regret it. Ryan began to speak. The sample you sent to the lab this morning, the results are back. It's similar to the pink skull that Robert Shaw was trafficking. It's more addictive than anything currently on the street, but he pointed to a line of data on his phone. They probably don't have the complete formula. The lab results show a much higher fatality rate than pink skull. Chloe closed her eyes. She couldn't help but remember Ethan's actions from the night before. He had taken the entire sugar ball himself. She hadn't ingested any of it. The pain was fleeting. When she opened her eyes again, her gaze was resolute. Whether it's sugar balls or pink skull, it ends in Willow Creek. I swear it. Back at the safe house, she opened her laptop and began to coordinate the operation. Intel, I want round-the-clock surveillance. Get me a photo of Kay and find out why she's really in Willow Creek. And pull the archives. I want to review Robert Shaw's confession. She sent out a series of encrypted messages, her expression as cold and unyielding as ice. Just as she was preparing to risk another visit to the Allure nightclub, an urgent message came from Intel. Ghost is dark. We think their cover is blown. She froze. Her contact at Intel had said Ghost was one of their best, that they hadn't made a single mistake in 3 years. The operation hadn't even begun. How could their cover be blown already? Her mind raced, replaying every detail she had overlooked. It stopped on Ethan's eyes. He had seen Ryan's wedding ring. Chloe's eyes went bloodshot. 1,000 voices screamed in her head. The pen in her hand pressed down so hard on the paper that the nib snapped, splattering ink across the page. Ethan didn't have amnesia at all. He had recognized her from the beginning. He hadn't exposed her because he wanted to use her to find the informant in the organization. He was going to get his revenge by killing her informant. The love she had suppressed for 3 years turned to poison, eating away at her from the inside. The taste of rust filled her mouth. How could she be so stupid? A thought flashed through her mind. How could she have been so stupid as to trust the son of a drug lord? She gritted her teeth and changed the plan. Change of plans. We're moving now. Hit the smaller dens first, based on the informant's intel. Don't let anyone get away. Intel, contact our other assets. Organize a rescue operation. Then, Chloe contacted her superior in Chicago and requested a transfer back in 1 month. The order was sent immediately to the Willow Creek Police Department. Meanwhile, Ethan was blindfolded and taken back to Kay's safe house. The dagger was removed from his collarbone, and a doctor administered an antidote. Through it all, Ethan remained silent. Except for the slight rise and fall of his chest, he could have been a corpse. After an unknown amount of time, his eyelashes fluttered, and a muffled sound escaped his lips. Water. Kay, who was on the phone, paused. She hung up, picked up a glass of water, and held it to his lips. Ethan drank greedily from her hand, water spilling down his chin and soaking the bandage on his collarbone. Kay looked down at him. Good? She asked softly. I mixed in a little high-purity heroin. He swallowed, and a wave of cold despair washed over him, leaving him numb. But when he looked up at Kay, his eyes were filled with a manic joy. Really? He looked ecstatic. Kay was amused by his foolish, greedy expression. She set down the glass and meticulously wiped her fingers with a tissue. You're on death's door, and all you can think about is getting high. Death is easy. It's over in an instant. Living is the painful part. Kay didn't reply, just stared at him in silence. He realized he had said too much and forced a weak smile. That's why I want it, so I won't feel the pain. A pity. For now, you'll just have to feel it, Kay said, her tone light. But if you're a good boy and let yourself heal, I'll give you anything you want. Her expression was haughty, radiating an unshakable confidence. But Ethan found it utterly absurd. A rat living in the darkness, thinking the sewer is her kingdom. He lowered his eyes to hide the scorn in them. Yes, he said softly. I'll be good. Don't leave me. Kay's phone vibrated again. She unlocked it in front of him. A single line of text was on the screen. Deal's off. There's a mole. Kay didn't reply. She put her phone away and gave him a long, meaningful look. While you were unconscious for the last 2 days, I lost 5 of my safe houses. That Captain Davis from Chicago is impressive. She emphasized the name Davis, her gray eyes silently assessing him. But it's a minor problem. She's just here in Willow Creek to score some points before her promotion back in Chicago in a month. A smile played at the corners of her eyes. Speaking of which, you've had some contact with her. She's probably watching you. What do you think? Should I just hand you over to her? Kay's volatile mood put Ethan on edge. His face went pale, and tears welled in his eyes. No, please no. He trembled. I don't want to go back to rehab. I'll die in there. You said you'd take care of me. I'll be good, I promise. Please, take me with you. His words were a jumbled mess, a testament to his terror. The smile on Kay's lips faded. She placed her fingers on the bandage on his collarbone, gently tracing its edge. Look at you so scared. It was just a joke. Don't worry. As long as you're a good boy, I'll take you to get your father's gift when my business here is done. But her gray eyes bored into his, like a snake ready to strike. If you're not, you can go join your parents. With that, Kay stood and walked out, the sound of her heels fading down the hall. Outside, dark clouds gathered, brewing a storm that threatened to wash the world clean. Ethan lay on the bed, staring blankly at the open study across the hall. He gently touched the back of his neck. There was a faint, bloody scratch there, and just beneath it, a tiny satellite bug was hidden. The madam's dagger had nearly destroyed it. If he hadn't reacted so quickly, he would probably be a nameless corpse by now. He looked away from the study, pulled the blanket over his head, and curled into a ball, a picture of insecurity. The hand at his neck twitched, his fingers moving slightly. With her cover blown, Chloe had no choice but to return to the station and coordinate from there. The operation had been a disaster from the start. The Willow Creek narcotics squad looked at her with suspicion. I bet she's just some hotshot from the city, here to pad her resume. I agree. How else does a woman get to be a captain at her age? Chloe didn't bother to correct them. In fact, she let the rumors spread. Kay, almond-shaped eyes, a red mole under one of them, wears a green Rolex Submariner. Is this reliable? Chloe asked, sitting in her office, her brow furrowed. It is. It's from Ghost. Chloe's mind immediately went to the woman who had taken Ethan. She paused. Ghost's cover isn't blown. Why are they dark? Is it possible they've been turned? Ghost was taken to Kay's safe house yesterday. Their phone was confiscated. They sent this message through the bug, using a coded signal. Based on the signal, I'm confident Ghost is still loyal. Chloe nodded, a wave of relief washing over her. Good. I'll have my team start running comparisons immediately. Yes, Captain. There was one other piece of intel from Ghost, but we can't decipher it. What is it? Kay might be here for Ethan Shaw. Chloe's pupils contracted. Her lips pressed into a thin, hard line. Robert Shaw left a gift for Ethan in Miami. We don't know what it is, but it seems to be very important to Kay. Pink skull, Chloe murmured. But was it valuable enough for Kay to risk coming back to Willow Creek? Besides, Ethan had no criminal record in the country. Kay had 100 ways to get him to Miami. Why come herself? Willow Creek. The key had to be here. Chloe's eyes cleared. She tapped her fingers on the desk, ordering Intel to start a full-scale investigation while she went to find Captain Miller of the Willow Creek Narcotics Squad to plan their next move. The so-called gift, I think it's just a smokescreen. He's important, but he's not the real reason Kay is back in the country. Chloe pinched the bridge of her nose, her eyes sharp. Her real objective has to be a deal. A deal so big she's the only one she trusts to handle it. Captain Davis, if I may, Miller interrupted. What you're saying makes sense, but Kay is a major player. To get her attention, we're talking about a deal worth billions. Let's not even get into how they'd move that much product into Willow Creek. For the last 2 weeks, before you even got here, we've had this town locked down tight. There's no way that much product could have gotten in. Maybe you should reconsider. 1,000 thoughts raced through her mind. Chloe's knuckles were white where her hands were clasped. After a moment, she spoke, her voice firm. No, it has to be a deal. Why? Faced with Captain Miller's confused questions, Chloe didn't explain. She just laid out the plan. Dealers are gamblers. Kay will wait until the day I'm scheduled to go back to Chicago. That day will be her best chance to make the deal, and our best chance to catch her. Captain Miller frowned, but he agreed. All right, but I'm still putting a tail on Ethan Shaw. I don't want Kay grabbing him and making a run for it. Chloe didn't object. As she was leaving, she added one last instruction. Find a way to confirm if Ethan Shaw really has amnesia. Him? He's just some dealer's boy toy. From what we can tell, he doesn't even know what his father left him, or he would have taken it and run by now. Why waste resources on him? Chloe hesitated for a moment, then sighed. I'm the one who arrested his father back in Chicago. I need to be sure he won't compromise the operation. She still didn't mention her past with Ethan. Like Ryan had said, it wasn't important. What was important was that she was a narcotics detective. Everything she did had to put the safety of the public first. Back in her car, she got a message from Ryan. It was the engagement photos they had taken. In the photo, Ryan was wearing a sharp tuxedo, looking incredibly handsome. but he wasn't happy with them. This photographer is terrible. He made me look like I'm 5'7". A hint of warmth entered Chloe's eyes. She tapped out a reply. Please, your legs alone are 5'7". You sound just like your wife. So dismissive. The familiar banter pulled her back into a swirl of memories. Back then, Ethan had skipped dinner for a month to get in shape for their engagement photos. He had fainted on her doorstep and still refused to eat a piece of chocolate. No, just give me some vegetables. You're already thin enough. You don't need to lose any more weight. The camera adds 10 pounds. I can't have you looking gorgeous in our photos while I look like some rich idiot's son. A small smile touched Chloe's lips, but the next second, her eyes went cold. She and Ethan were on opposite sides now. There was no going back. She opened an encrypted album on her phone and began deleting the photos she had tried so hard to forget. Hundreds of photos quickly dwindled to a handful. Finally, her finger hovered over the last one, unable to press delete. After a long moment, she turned off the screen, burying the photo and all her memories of Ethan deep in her heart. Time flew by, and the day of her return to Chicago drew closer. Over the past month, a joint task force led by the Chicago PD and coordinated with the Willow Creek Police Department and surrounding counties had successfully raided dozens of drug dens, seizing nearly a ton of narcotics and arresting over 100 individuals. A press conference to celebrate the victory had already been scheduled, the official statements prepared. It seemed as if the drug trade in Willow Creek had been completely eradicated. But everyone involved in the operation knew the truth. This was just the calm before the storm. The real target, the one hiding in the shadows, the elusive Kay, was still at large. Every day she remained free, the country was at risk from a new, dangerous narcotic. She rubbed her aching shoulders and looked at the message that had just come in from Ghost. Veterans Cemetery. The hill behind it. In almost a month, besides this coded message, Ghost had only sent 2 other communications. One was about Ethan. Robert Shaw had deposited the formula for Pink Skull in a Miami bank. Only Ethan could access it. That explained why Kay was keeping Ethan hidden. The other was the time for Kay's long-planned deal. Just as she had predicted, it was scheduled for 2 a.m. on the night she was supposed to return to Chicago. But she had never imagined Kay would be so audacious as to choose the Veterans Cemetery as the location for the deal. A flash of anger ignited in Captain Miller's eyes. Isn't she afraid of the consequences? The men and women buried there were heroes who had died defending their country. Wasn't Kay afraid of their ghosts? Chloe shook her head. She's not afraid. She's hiding in plain sight, and, in the process, thoroughly humiliate the narcotics division. The room was silent, the suppressed anger in their eyes like a trigger waiting to be pulled. They were all waiting for the moment a bullet would pierce the sinner's skull. Chloe's sharp gaze swept over the room. She opened a map and, after studying the surrounding roads, began to lay out the plan. Surveillance team, I want eyes on every entrance and exit. Encrypted reports every 15 minutes. Report any anomalies immediately. Snipers, you'll coordinate with surveillance. In a critical situation, you have the green light to take the shot. Captain Miller, you'll lead the team to lock down the perimeter and provide backup for Ghost. Don't let a single one of them escape. Finally, her gaze swept over the younger faces in the room. The rest of you are with me. We'll set up the ambush on site. Vests on. Your safety is the priority. And preserve all evidence. Yes, Captain. The room answered in unison. The evening wind was cold. As the time of the meet approached, a sense of unease settled in Chloe's stomach. She thought for a moment, then asked a subordinate to bring her Ethan's file again. She read it word for word. It was all there in black and white. Severe head trauma from an inmate, resulting in amnesia. The prison doctor's report suggested it was psychological. Without professional intervention, recovery was highly unlikely. But her eye was still twitching. She called Captain Miller. Captain Miller, any movement on Ghost's end? Captain Miller glanced at the brightly lit Allure nightclub. No, everything seems normal. Don't worry, Captain. I'll give my life before I let another 524 happen. With that, there was nothing more she could say. After all, she couldn't even articulate what felt so wrong. I'm counting on you, Captain. She hung up the phone and stood, walking out into the cold, fluorescent light that illuminated the faces of her team. Chloe let out a silent breath, then clenched her fist. Move out. At 8 p.m., Chloe and her team were in position on the hill behind the Veterans Cemetery. Her eyes were sharp, all traces of fatigue gone. The rest of her team was the same, all waiting for the final showdown with Kay. The hands on her watch ticked by. 15 minutes until 2 a.m. but the cemetery was silent. She thought for a moment, then keyed her radio. Surveillance. Any individuals entering the cemetery? Singles or pairs? The reply was immediate. Negative. What about the groundskeepers? Negative. We already cleared the area under the pretense of a fire inspection. The staff all went home. Chloe's fingers tightened on the radio. Continue surveillance. Don't let anyone slip by. Another hour passed. A thin layer of frost had formed on Chloe's eyelashes. Captain Miller's voice crackled over the radio. Captain Davis, it looks like Kay changed the plan. Should we? She pursed her lips, which were cracked and bleeding after hours without water. Her voice was hoarse. Any word from Ghost? Negative, Captain Miller replied. He paused. Do you think they've been? Before he could finish, Chloe muted her radio, her eyes fixed on the woods ahead. Everyone held their breath. 2 figures in groundskeeper uniforms emerged from the trees, looking around cautiously. One of them whistled, and a moment later, 20 more figures emerged from the woods, all carrying shovels. Based on the fragmented intel from Ghost, Chloe silently scanned the crowd, searching for Kay. Then she saw someone and froze. It was Ryan. No wonder he had left so abruptly. He had gone undercover. Chloe's chest heaved. From the day she joined the force, she had been prepared to die in the line of duty. But not Ryan. His wife was pregnant. She couldn't let him die here. A lump formed in Chloe's throat. She forced down the wave of emotion and waited for her opportunity. At 4 a.m., the headstones on the hill were askew, the open graves beneath them filled with bags of pink powder. She finally understood what was so special about Willow Creek. Long before they had any idea, the dealers had bribed the cemetery staff, replacing the ashes in the urns with drugs. Just from what she could see, there was at least $200 or $300 million worth of product. A woman in a hat and mask appeared on the surveillance feed. She checked the time, the Vacheron Constantine on her wrist glinting in the low light. Then she picked up a bag of the powder and opened it. The 2 sides began to inspect the product. In the hazy pre-dawn light, Chloe gave a silent hand signal. Move in. Gunshots shattered the morning silence of the cemetery. The silent headstones bore witness to the firefight. Chloe was at the front, her face a mask of determination. She shot the woman in the hat in the leg as she tried to flee, then tackled her to the ground. Her arm muscles strained as she locked the woman in a chokehold, the force of their momentum sending them both crashing to the ground. The woman threw an elbow back, but Chloe dodged it. After a brief struggle, the woman's strength gave out, and she lay on the ground, panting. The rest of her team had already apprehended the other dealers. Chloe ripped off the woman's hat and froze. It was the madam, her eyes narrowed to slits. Ha ha ha, Kay was right. He really is a cop's dog. A sense of dread washed over her just as her phone began to ring. She answered with a trembling hand. Captain Miller's voice, filled with guilt, came through the receiver. Captain Davis, Ghost is missing. Chloe's heart pounded in her chest. What do you mean missing? She demanded. Weren't they under 24-hour surveillance? How could they be gone? Did you search the nightclub? We searched. Nothing, Captain Miller said, glaring at the henchmen now in custody. I've questioned every one of them. They don't know anything. What about the bug? Can't you track it? After the last message, Ghost removed the bug to be safe. Chloe's brow furrowed, the veins on her hand standing out as she gripped the radio. She couldn't help but think of 524. Just 4 hours of silence, and they had become mutilated corpses. Hey, cop, the madam said suddenly, a malicious smile on her face. Why don't you ask me? Chloe immediately realized she had let her emotions show. She closed her eyes, her expression hardening. She walked calmly over to the madam. It would be best for you to talk. But if you don't, I'll find him anyway. Willow Creek is a small town. Sooner or later. The madam cut her off. Don't be so tough, Captain. Otherwise, you might not get to see Ethan one last time. What? Chloe frowned, confused. The flicker of confusion in her eyes was all the madam needed. She understood. You didn't know? Ha ha ha. You didn't know Ethan was your informant. This is priceless. He took 2 shots of my truth serum and didn't give you up, and you didn't even know. I'm not saying another word. Captain, I'll be waiting for you to go collect his body parts. Ha 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 ha. Her arrogant laughter was a knife twisting in Chloe's gut. How could it be Ethan? Ghost was a woman. 1,000 details she had overlooked flooded her mind. The strange kiss, the sugar ball, the dagger in his collarbone. It was all mocking her. You thought you were so smart. How could you not see he was in over his head? No. Chloe's nails dug into her palm, drawing blood. she called for Ryan. "You're in charge here. Captain Miller will be back soon to assist. I want you to make sure not a single one of these dealers gets away." "That's an order." Ryan nodded, his expression complicated. "Understood." Chloe couldn't wait another second. She ran for the parking lot, barking a short command to Intel into her radio. "Find Ethan Shaw's last known location. Now!" 10 minutes later, she had his last known location and a photo. His eyes were closed, his head held at an angle to deliberately expose the bandage on his neck. On the drive over, she couldn't stop thinking about what they would do to him now that his cover was blown. Drugs, torture, dismemberment. The brutal images of what happened to compromised informants flashed through her mind. Her breathing grew heavy, as if a hand were squeezing her throat. She had always known how she felt about Ethan, but she couldn't cross that line. It would be a betrayal of her fallen comrades. This was the first time she had allowed herself to realize that he was on her side. He didn't just have his father's tainted blood in his veins. He also had his mother's honor, but she had never let herself see it. She had pushed him away with clumsy lies, stubbornly believing it was the only way to keep him safe. But in the end, she had been the one to push him off the cliff. And now he was in mortal danger. Chloe gritted her teeth so hard she tasted blood. Every nerve in her body was on fire. She had to fix this. She could not let him be consumed by the darkness. She floored the accelerator, the engine roaring as she raced toward the location. The world outside her window blurred into a single line. "If you're awake, stop pretending." Ethan woke from a drugged haze to the feeling of his hands and feet being bound. He kept his eyes closed, feigning unconsciousness, hoping to glean more information from Kay, but she had already seen through his ruse. Ethan opened his eyes and silently scanned his surroundings. The light was dim, revealing a room filled with discarded construction materials. An abandoned construction site. A smile played on Kay's lips as she slowly approached him. "Why can't you just be obedient?" Her voice was as soft as a lover's whisper, but her actions were ruthless. A sharp blow to the back of his head sent him crashing to the floor, his head splitting open on the concrete. "I don't understand. What did I do wrong?" he mumbled, a cold dread spreading through him. Had she figured out his plan? Kay snorted. "You're just like your mother. Back then, my father tried to convince Robert to use drugs on her, but he couldn't bring himself to do it." Her fingers dug into his neck, her voice laced with a sigh. "I can't afford to make the same mistake." A gurgling sound escaped Ethan's throat, his eyes bulging. "I didn't betray you." Kay suddenly released him. She opened her hand, revealing the bug he had thrown in the trash. He knew it was over. There was no way to talk his way out of this. Kay wouldn't let him live. Ethan coughed a few times. When he looked up, the fawning, pathetic act was gone. In its place was a resolve that mirrored Chloe's. "Because of you, I've lost hundreds of tons of product." Kay pulled a syringe filled with a clear liquid from her bag. "But it doesn't matter. Once I get you to Miami, I'll get it all back." Ethan's heart sank. He wasn't afraid of death. He had been prepared to be tortured and killed. But this, he could not accept becoming a slave to drugs. Ethan's lips were white. "You're not leaving? Aren't you afraid the police will find you?" Kay slowly pressed the needle against his vein. "If I run now, the police will notice." "Don't worry. No one knows about this place. It's the perfect place to get you hooked." Ethan fell silent. He didn't want to waste his breath on her. The cold liquid flowed into his veins. He gritted his teeth and began to saw at the ropes on his wrists with a sharp piece of concrete he had found. Sweat poured from his forehead, stinging his eyes, but he didn't make a sound. Kay chuckled. "I brought a variety. You can try them all." Ethan ignored her, his mind sharp and clear. He had already sent Kay's description to the task force. If he could just hold on a little longer, someone would find him. But the drugs took hold faster than he had anticipated. In just 3 minutes, a cold sweat soaked his clothes, and the world began to twist and distort around him. No, just a little longer. Images flashed through his mind, his mother's hateful stare, the young girl's empty eyes. Snap. The sound of the rope snapping was like a thunderclap in his ears. He jolted to his senses and lunged at Kay. Kay, caught off guard, was tackled to the ground. She recovered quickly, drawing a dagger and plunging it into his thigh. But he didn't seem to feel the pain. He wrapped his hands around her throat and squeezed. Blood stained his handsome face. He managed a weak smile. "I won't let you escape." The casual amusement on Kay's face was replaced by a furious rage. She stabbed him again and again with the dagger. Ethan's body grew cold. A flicker of despair entered his eyes. With a final shove, Kay sent him sprawling to the ground, limp and unmoving. I didn't want it to come to this. I met you when we were children. I quite liked you. Kay's face was grim. But you're too disobedient. I can't afford any complications. As she spoke, she placed her foot on his ankle. Then, she bent down and, with a sudden violent motion, plunged the dagger into his ankle and twisted. Arg! A blood-curdling scream tore from Ethan's throat. A bloody tendon rolled in the dust. But Kay didn't stop. She moved to his other leg, then his wrists. By the end, Ethan was in too much pain to even scream, lying on the floor like a broken doll. The warmth drained from his body with his blood. He stared up at the gray ceiling, his thoughts hazy. I think I'm dying. Pity I couldn't catch Kay in the end. Kay's eyes gleamed with a feverish excitement as she raised the dagger for the final blow. Bang! The deafening gunshot echoed through the abandoned building. Sweat dripped from Chloe's forehead as she held her gun steady. Kay, I've got you. The smile on Kay's face vanished. Are you going to shoot, Captain? The dagger in her hand was pressed against Ethan's throat. He was covered in so much blood, Chloe couldn't tell if his throat had already been cut. Ethan turned his head in a daze, blinking hard. The figure before him didn't vanish. She was real. She was there. It was Chloe. Once again, she had come to him like an angel. Kay clicked her tongue, the sharp edge of the dagger tracing a line across his throat. I can guarantee I'll slit his throat the moment you pull that trigger. Of course, you could also let me go. Then, Ethan gets to live. A happy ending for everyone. Chloe's eyelashes fluttered, but she answered without hesitation. Fine. She lowered her gun, the barrel pointing at the floor. That's not good enough, Captain. Didn't you take 2 bullets for him once? How about a repeat performance? The knife in Kay's hand never wavered from Ethan's carotid artery. Chloe had no opening. Her breathing grew heavy. She nodded, her eyes locked on Kay. Fine, but how do I know you won't kill him anyway? Heh, only worried about him? Kay sneered. You should be more worried about yourself. If I have time to kill anyone else, it'll be you. Her voice was ice cold. Chloe took a deep breath, tearing a strip of fabric from her shirt and tying it around her thigh as a tourniquet. She looked up at the dying Ethan, a faint smile on her face. Then come and kill me. Chloe raised her gun, the barrel aimed at her own leg, and took a deep breath. No. Suddenly, she heard a voice, as faint as the wind. She froze. Ethan's face was almost translucent. He managed a weak smile. Live a good life. Do what you have to do. He used the last of his strength to lunge toward Kay's knife. A spray of blood arced through the air. The sudden spray of blood blinded Kay for a crucial second. Damn it! Kay shoved Ethan aside and charged at Chloe, dagger raised. It was her only chance. Bang! The gun fired. Kay fell, just a foot away from Ethan. Chloe stumbled forward, pressing her hands to the wound in Ethan's neck, her eyes filled with a desperate grief. Ethan, hold on. The paramedics are on their way. 6 years ago, you didn't give up. Don't give up now. Back then, when she had saved him from those thugs, she had accidentally broken the clasp on his locket. She had seen the badge number inside. Back then, she never would have imagined that one day she would be begging this man not to die.
About rein, Elite.
He's my brother. You asked me once if I ever had feelings for you. At this, a flicker of light returned to Ethan's empty eyes. Chloe's eyes were red, raw. She leaned down and pressed a trembling kiss to his forehead. I never stopped loving you. So please, I'm begging you, don't die. Please. The kiss seemed to give his broken body a final surge of strength. No, you need to stay in the light. That's what's good. He looked at her face with a deep longing, though his eyes could no longer see. But in his mind's eye, he could see her, standing on a stage, accepting an award, her gaze firm and resolute. I've atoned for my sins, right? Ethan's voice grew fainter. Chloe shook her head frantically. Ethan, you never did anything wrong. I'm so sorry. From the very beginning, I was the one who was wrong. He had pursued her for 3 years. She knew, better than anyone, what kind of man he was. But after everything that had happened, she had stood against him, letting Ryan slander and defame him without a single word of protest. Because it was the only way she could live with herself. The only way she could justify using him. Only now did she realize how terribly, horribly wrong she had been. She had forced the man she loved to wear the shackles of atonement, and now he had paid for it with his life. Chloe's sobs tore through her, but the blood kept flowing, hot and thick between her fingers, like lava consuming everything in its path. Warm rain fell on his face, mingling with the blood to form tears of red. Faces flashed before his eyes, their empty, desperate gazes fading in the wind. The dim world brightened. He saw his mother walking toward him from a door of light, her arms open. "I'm so proud of you." All the pain and sorrow of the last 3 years welled up in his eyes, but he couldn't bear to let the tears fall and stain her hands. His clear eyes closed. Chloe knelt on the ground, holding his body, screaming his name until her voice was raw. He couldn't hear her anymore. "Chloe," he thought, his last breath a silent whisper. "Good night." 3 months later, when Chloe arrived at the cemetery, the sky was clear. A few small yellow flowers bloomed by the headstone, bright and innocent. She took out a cloth and carefully wiped the dust from the stone, speaking in a low voice. "Ryan transferred to a desk job. He asked me to tell you he's sorry. Kay's entire organization has been dismantled. The task force received a unit citation. Your mother's badge number has been officially retired." She told him many things, but nothing about herself. It was as if she had forgotten, or perhaps she thought he wouldn't want to hear it. As the sky began to darken, Chloe picked up the small bag of debris and walked back to her car. A sudden downpour soaked her before she could get inside. The tears she had been holding back finally fell, mingling with the rain on her face. "To know my love is to know my sorrow. A long love, a long memory. A short love, an endless sorrow."